The same day my doctor informed me that I had an ulcer requiring surgery, I returned home and asked Clara for a divorce. She was standing by her desk in the study, and she looked up from her papers, raising a single, perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Is this because I went to my assistant's birthday dinner the other night?" she asked, her voice calm, almost clinical. I simply nodded. "Yes," I said, though we both knew it was about so much more than a single dinner. She didn't press the issue. Instead, she let out a quiet sigh, took the divorce agreement I held out to her, and signed her name on the dotted line without any discernible hesitation. "I should warn you," she said, capping the pen and placing it neatly beside the signed document. "I won't consider getting back together for at least 3 months, so please don't come to me in a week, crying and begging for me to take you back." After 7 years of being together, she was acutely aware that 3 months was the longest I had ever managed to hold a grudge during one of our arguments. She was entirely confident in her belief that I, the one who had always seemed to depend on her emotional strength, would be incapable of functioning without her. What she didn't know was that my plans were already in motion. I had already completed the purchase of a small house more than 1,000 miles away, in a quiet city up north where the air was clean. My mother had a saying she repeated often during her troubled life: "A disloyal woman is worse than a stray dog." This time I had no intention of going back. I carefully took the signed papers, placed them into a manila folder, and was preparing to leave the room. It was then that Clara spoke again, her voice retaining its cool composure. "I'll give you one last chance, Ethan. A marriage isn't something you can just play games with." I paused and looked back at her, meeting her steady gaze. "I'm being serious," I told her. "You always say you're serious," she replied, a faint dismissive smile playing on her lips as she shook her head slowly. "You've even gone to the trouble of having papers drawn up this time. What grand gesture are you planning for our next fight?" The soft, warm light from the crystal chandelier overhead seemed to wrap around her, making her look regal and untouchable. Her fingers tapped a light, rhythmic pattern on the polished surface of her desk, a picture of relaxed confidence. "There won't be a next time," I said, my voice even and quiet. Her tapping fingers stilled. Clara looked as though she was about to say something more, but at that exact moment a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the world outside the large window, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. Simultaneously, the screen of her phone on the desk lit up. The name displayed was Noah. I couldn't stop the sarcastic look that crossed my face, but Clara simply met my gaze with a nonchalant shrug before tapping the screen to answer the call on speaker. The second the connection was made, a young man's distinctly nasal voice filled the quiet room. "Miss Vance, there's a terrible storm. I'm stuck here at the office and I can't get a rideshare. The thunder is so loud, I'm really scared." Clara didn't respond immediately. Instead, she lifted her eyes and looked directly at me, a silent challenge in her gaze. In the past, this was the point where I would have lost my temper, snatched the phone from her, and furiously told him off before forbidding Clara from going anywhere near him. But now, standing there with our signed divorce agreement in my folder, I felt an unexpected and profound sense of relief wash over me. After a few seconds of strange silence from our end, Noah seemed to realize something was amiss. He asked, his voice now timid, Is your husband there?" Before either of us could respond, he began to speak in a rushed, flustered tone. "I don't mean anything by calling, really. With a storm this bad, I know it's not convenient for you to come and get me, Miss Vance. I was just hoping you might let me sleep in the executive office for the night. If this is making your husband upset, I can explain everything to him. I promise I won't make a mess of your room." "Sir, are you listening to me?" I found I couldn't help myself. I took a step forward and took the phone from the desk. Noah? If I'm not mistaken, your official job title is executive assistant, correct? The young man on the other end of the line seemed startled by my voice and stammered out a quiet, "Yes." I continued in a mild, almost conversational tone. So, as an assistant, when you find yourself working late and facing extreme weather, your first instinct is to telephone your boss and tell her, in a voice full of tears, how frightened you are. You can't secure transportation home, and even though the company provides a fully equipped employee lounge, your proposed solution is to ask to sleep in your boss's private office. Is my understanding of the situation accurate? Noah was completely silent. Your professional skills are severely lacking, and your sense of appropriate boundaries is an absolute disaster. Did your parents neglect to teach you any basic common decency? Calling your married female superior at this hour? I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was already 11 o'clock at night. He had only been employed with the company for 3 months. Clara had always been famously lenient with her staff, so there was no legitimate reason he should have been working so late in the first place. Even if he genuinely couldn't get home, the employee lounge had comfortable folding beds and toiletries available for this very reason. But Noah's first thought was to ask to stay in the executive office. That small, private bedroom was a space Clara used when she was pushing through a major project, and it was a space I sometimes shared with her. My own toiletries and a bathrobe were still in that closet. The audacity of him to even suggest sleeping there was astounding, not to mention the countless other small incidents that had been steadily eroding my patience. Despite having prepared myself for this separation, a wave of anger still swelled in my chest. "I'm so sorry, sir. It was thoughtless of me. Please don't fight with Miss Vance because of me. She's been so busy with her work lately and hasn't been feeling well." Noah's voice broke with emotion. He was crying like a petulant child who felt he'd been wronged, but he was clever enough not to disconnect the call, allowing his irritating, choked sobs to hang in the air between us. "That's enough," Clara said, standing up abruptly. She took the phone from my hand and quickly spoke a few soothing words to him. "He's just a kid who recently graduated. He doesn't know any better. Why are you taking your anger out on him?" She frowned at me, seemingly completely unaware of the transparent nature of Noah's little games. It was such a clumsy, obvious ploy. Was she truly that oblivious, or was she, on some level, enjoying the drama of it all? The hot anger that had been churning inside me suddenly dissipated, replaced by a feeling of complete and utter pointlessness. I looked at Clara, at the entire situation, and felt nothing but exhaustion. The rain continued to fall throughout the night. The following morning, the first thing I saw when I unlocked my phone was a message from my best friend, Mark. It contained a link to an Instagram post. The username was Clara's right-hand man, and it had been posted about an hour earlier. The caption read, "A private car on a rainy night and an energy-boosting breakfast when I'm feeling down. Guess who my angel of a CEO is?" The first photograph was a selfie of Noah, smiling from the back seat of what was unmistakably our Maybach. The second picture showed him holding a Starbucks coffee, subtly raising it in a toast towards Clara, who was visible working in the blurry background. There was a small, hand-drawn heart on the coffee sleeve. I felt a momentary freeze. Clara hadn't left the house at all last night. It was clear she had sent our personal driver to pick him up. My phone vibrated again. Mark was calling. "Ethan, who is this pretty boy? Does he have a death wish? Fantasizing about your wife all over the internet? Does Clara even have a clue she's being played like this? You need to have him fired immediately. Everyone in the comments section is shipping them. It's making me physically ill just looking at it." I navigated to the account's profile page. He had only a dozen or so posts, yet he had managed to accumulate nearly 300,000 followers. The entire feed was a carefully curated documentation of the daily life of a clumsy, endearing little assistant and his powerful, beautiful female boss, with every caption dripping with flirtatious and romantic undertones. His followers were completely captivated, flooding the comments with pleas for the two of them to get married. Mark was still ranting on the other end of the line. This kid is a hell of a storyteller. Everyone who knows Clara knows she's an ice queen who only ever thaws out for you. Since when does she go out of her way to remember an assistant's blood sugar issues? And that limited edition watch he's wearing, isn't that from your favorite brand? Mark's angry voice suddenly trailed off. After a long, heavy pause, he asked softly, "Ethan, are you crying?" I covered the mouthpiece of my phone and sniffled, trying to regain my composure. "No, it rained all night. I think I'm just catching a cold. Let's not talk about this anymore. When are you heading back to Portland? I want to leave with you." Mark was silent for another moment before he spoke again. "Did Clara fight with you because of that guy?" "She didn't fight with me," I said, looking out the window at the gloomy, overcast sky. A whole night had passed, but the glass was still streaked with moisture, the lingering droplets blurring the world outside into a hazy watercolor. "It's just that this city has seen too much rain lately. I don't want to be here anymore." Last night, when Clara signed those divorce papers, she didn't hesitate for even a fraction of a second. What was there left for me to hold on to? I proceeded to tell Mark about the ulcer and the upcoming surgery as well. He began shouting into the phone, insisting that I had to meet him right away. When I arrived at the restaurant we had agreed upon, he was still stuck in traffic. Clara and I were frequent patrons of this exclusive establishment, so the staff all recognized me. As soon as the manager saw me, he greeted me warmly and began expertly leading me toward one of the private rooms. "Miss Vance arrived a little while ago," he said. "Please watch your step." Clara was here? I stopped walking, my feet feeling suddenly heavy. The sound of familiar laughter was drifting from the room just ahead. "I remember whenever this place introduced a new seasonal dish, Ethan would be begging you to bring him here to try it. Why didn't you invite him to come along today?" That was the voice of Sarah, one of the company's vice presidents. "He's sulking. Don't pay him any mind," Clara's voice replied, as cool and unaffected as ever. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have called Miss Vance so late last night after I had to work overtime." A clear young male voice chimed in. Noah was here as well. "Just because of a single phone call?" Another VP clicked his tongue in disapproval. "Ethan's temper really does seem to get worse with each passing year. Clara, don't be mad at me for being so blunt, but he chased you for so long. Now that he finally has you, he doesn't seem to appreciate it. He just creates drama all day long." "Ethan chased Miss Vance?" Noah suddenly interjected, his voice filled with a glee he did a poor job of concealing. "I always just assumed—" His tone shifted, and he let out a soft, theatrical sigh. "Sigh. Miss Vance is so good to him. She's so busy she can't even find time to eat properly, but she still makes sure to celebrate every little holiday with him. And if one tiny thing doesn't go exactly his way, he throws a massive fit. It honestly breaks my heart to see her treated like that." The room fell silent for a couple of seconds, and then everyone began to joke and laugh. "See? Your husband isn't even as considerate as your assistant." "Well, you know how men get. They sit at home all day with nothing to do and get overly sensitive, not like these young guys who know how to dote on you." A cold chill traced its way down my spine as I listened to them talk. These people were Clara's closest colleagues, the ones who had helped her build the company from the ground up. Back when they were all struggling to get started, I had used my own savings to buy them new equipment, ordered fruit platters for them during the hot summer months, and sent over late-night meals to the office during the winter. They had all called me by my first name so warmly back then, and this was what they said about me behind my back. I didn't want to hear another word. I turned to leave, but accidentally bumped into a waiter who was carrying a large platter of food. He let out a startled cry as the restaurant's seasonal seafood specialty splattered across the polished floor. The laughter inside the room stopped abruptly, and the door swung open. "Ethan?" The VPs exchanged awkward, guilty glances. I lifted my head and saw Clara sitting at the head of the table. Noah was positioned right next to her, at her left hand, looking for all the world like he was the man of the house. The manager hurried over to clean up the mess. Thankfully, the young waiter hadn't been burned. I apologized to him, and he just blushed and shook his head, assuring me it was fine before he scurried back to the kitchen. The entire time, Clara's eyes were fixed on me. Sarah came over with a sheepish smile. "Ethan, when did you get here? Why didn't you come on in and sit down?" 15 minutes ago, I said, my face a blank mask. "You guys continue?" "Oh, this is all just a misunderstanding. Clara, aren't you going to say something?" Awkward smiles were plastered on their faces as the others got up and tried to persuade me to take a seat. Suddenly, Noah pushed his chair back, stood up, and poured himself a glass of hard liquor. "Sir, please don't get the wrong idea. That's not what everyone meant." His fingers trembled slightly as he raised the glass. "Today's my first day as a permanent employee. Miss Vance invited the VPs to celebrate with me. I was feeling a little emotional and just complained a bit without thinking. It's all my fault. Please don't be angry with Miss Vance anymore. I'll drink this as an apology to you." Noah downed the liquor in a single gulp, then began to cough violently, his handsome face turning bright red as tears welled up in his eyes. Clara, sitting beside him, frowned slightly and handed him a napkin. I let out a cold laugh. "You've managed to say it all, haven't you? And you've pinned a pretty significant crime on me in the process." Noah looked up, his expression a carefully constructed mixture of fragility and defiance. "I came to this big city all by myself after I graduated. I don't have any family or friends here. Miss Vance is the only person I can trust and rely on. It was raining so hard last night. I panicked, and that's the only reason I called her. You said that I have no sense of boundaries, and I can accept that. But you also insulted my parents. I really can't accept that," he choked out, his voice thick with unshed tears. As soon as he said that, the expressions on the VP's faces shifted, and the gazes they directed toward me were filled with disapproval. I was so angry I had to laugh, and I was about to retort when Clara suddenly spoke. "Ethan didn't insult anyone." She looked directly at Noah and said sternly, "Don't bring this up ever again. The matter is over." Noah could only nod meekly in response. Then, mustering his courage, he poured 2 more glasses of liquor, walked over to me and said, "Sir, please let me toast you again." "Can you possibly forgive me?" This time Clara didn't stop him. She knew that I could hold my liquor. But what she didn't know was that I had an ulcer. I couldn't drink alcohol at all. Whether this marriage could be salvaged or not, I wasn't going to risk my health over something so foolish. I took the glass from his hand, and, with a quick flick of my wrist, poured the contents onto the floor. The expression on everyone's face at the table changed instantly. Noah looked as though he was on the verge of crying again, turning to Clara as if for help. In the next second, the loud, crisp sound of a slap echoed through the room, landing squarely on his face. "You've got some nerve, don't you? Charming a whole room of women and thinking you can bully my Ethan because he doesn't have anyone here to back him up?" The familiar, comforting scent of cedarwood filled the air. Mark had arrived. Before anyone in the room could fully react, he scanned the table, his eyes finally landing on Clara. "Clara, you're just going to sit there and watch this pretty boy walk all over Ethan? Do you even know that he can't drink right now because of his health?" Clara looked at me then, a flash of confusion and shock crossing her face. "What's wrong with his health?" None of your business. Go take care of your little assistant, I said. I grabbed a furious Mark and pulled him out of the room, leaving the stunned group behind us. Ethan, your fighting skills have really gotten rusty, Mark said later, taking a huge gulp of his bubble tea and patting his chest in frustration. Back in college, you had no problem at all dealing with all the guys who were constantly swarming around Clara. What happened in there today? Why did you just let them walk all over you like that? Besides, you're not well. What is there to be afraid of? You should have just decked him. I rubbed Mark's back to help calm him down and said softly, I asked Clara for a divorce last night. She agreed. That's why I have to get this surgery. I want to move to Portland. The rapid-fire barrage of bombshells made Mark choke on his tea. After he had finally calmed down, he fell silent for a long time. Ethan, 7 years. Can you really just let it all go? Mark asked quietly. I knew he wasn't trying to make excuses for Clara. He was afraid that I would regret my decision, that I would be heartbroken. After all, I had loved Clara for 7 years. She had become an inextricable part of my life. I watched a little boy holding a bright red balloon walk by and fell deep into thought. I had asked myself that same question countless times over the past few days, but something Mark had just said suddenly brought everything into sharp focus. He said I used to handle all the guys who hit on Clara with ease, but the truth is, I've never been a tough or confrontational person. I was the type to get upset for half a day after a simple argument with a roommate, and I was never good at handling jealous drama. All I ever had to do was tell Clara that I was feeling jealous. She would then be the one to take the initiative, to clearly and firmly draw a line with any man who got too close. Things had never escalated to the ugly point they reached today. This time, she would rather sign divorce papers than simply transfer Noah to another department. That's when I knew, with absolute certainty, that this relationship was beyond saving. The first time I ever saw Clara, it was under rather dramatic circumstances. My college roommate was dating her roommate, but it turned out the girl was cheating on him. The day after this discovery, my roommate dragged a few of us along to confront the cheater, and Clara just happened to be there. The girl stammered, trying to get Clara to back up her lie and say that she had been in their dorm room all night. But once Clara understood what was happening, her face became cold and hard. I can't help you, she said. Being loyal to your partner is the bare minimum requirement in a relationship. The young woman's voice was cool and clear. She was wearing a faded plaid shirt, but as she faced my roommate's angry taunts and threats, her eyes were as firm and unyielding as if she were defending some precious, immutable truth. In that singular moment, my heart skipped a beat. It was true. My criteria for a partner had always been simple, boiled down to just 2 words: loyalty and fidelity. It was the most basic thing one could ask for, yet also the hardest thing to find. For as long as I could remember, my parents had fought constantly about this very topic. My father was handsome and was a well-known playboy of his era. He would spend all night at dance halls, often coming home with bright red lipstick stains on his collar. My mother both loved him and hated him with a fierce passion. She once even held a knife to her own throat, trying to force him to stop seeing those other women. But every time my father would just sweet-talk her for a few days before going right back to his nightlife. Finally, the delicate thread in my mother's mind that was called sanity snapped. On the day of the winter solstice, she put on bright red lipstick, wore her favorite dress, and held me for the last time. Ethan, she said, don't you ever find a man like your father? Then, without a single backward glance, she leaped from the roof of the dance hall, falling into the pristine snow below like a brilliant, broken flower. I relived that scene in countless nightmares and turned down every girl who ever pursued me until I met Clara. I thought, she's not like my father. At first, Clara wasn't interested in me at all. People told me she was the famous ice queen of the physics department and had never been seen flirting with anyone. But that only made me more determined to win her over. She had a sensitive stomach, so I would wait outside the women's dorm before dawn each morning to give her a warm breakfast. She loved philosophy, so I went to the library to check out the same books she had read, occasionally posting my reviews on my social media feed, which I had set to be visible only to her. She loved indie bands, so I would travel across half the city to find out-of-production records and then casually give them to her as a birthday gift. And so it went, until the winter of our sophomore year. As usual, I was standing outside the women's dorm with a bag of hot buns, waiting to walk Clara to her morning class. She walked up, saw that my nose and ears were flushed red from the biting cold, and suddenly sighed. She took off her own scarf and carefully wrapped it around my neck. "Ethan," she said softly, "love yourself first before you love others." I buried my face in the soft wool of her scarf, my eyes crinkling with a wide smile. Of course I loved myself. That was precisely why I had so carefully chosen a partner for myself. And from that day forward, for 7 years, Clara truly had eyes and a heart only for me. Until Noah showed up. One day in July, Clara came home very late from work. She explained that her car had been scraped and she'd had to take it in for repairs. I asked her what happened and if she was hurt. She just shook her head, wrapped her arms around my waist, and told me that something interesting had happened to her that day. Apparently, the HR department had rejected a recent graduate for a position. But the kid refused to take no for an answer, ambushing her car in the underground parking garage with his resume in hand, and had almost gotten himself hit. I frowned, about to comment on how dangerous and reckless that was. But then I saw Clara, lost in the memory of the event, a small smile on her face that she herself didn't even seem to be aware of. A sudden, inexplicable panic seized me, and everything that followed only served to confirm my deepest fears. Was it the cartoonish emojis that suddenly started appearing in her text messages? Or was it the fact that she was 2 hours late for my birthday dinner? Or how, even though my minor stomach issues didn't require any special care, she would have our housekeeper prepare all sorts of bland, healthy soups for her to take to the office in a large thermos? And then there was the watch. It was supposed to be my anniversary gift, but she ended up ordering one for Noah as well. There were simply too many things. Over the past 3 months, we had fought about Noah more times than I could even count. She said that Noah reminded her of herself when she was young, coming from a poor background but possessing a tough, resilient spirit. When she talked about his old, faded canvas shoes, her eyes would fill with a look of profound pity. She insisted that she only saw him as a junior colleague she was mentoring, yet she crossed the line between professional and personal again and again, trampling my dignity into the ground in the process. Just 2 days ago, during a particularly huge fight, I smashed the small ceramic pig figurine that Noah had given her. Clara's face went cold, and she slammed the door and stormed out of the house. I cried my eyes out, and when I went to wash my face in the bathroom, I was horrified to see in the mirror that my expression was identical to my mother's all those years ago. My face was a twisted, ugly mask of resentment and bitterness. In that instant, I knew I had to leave. I booked a flight to Portland with Mark and went home to pack my things. When I opened the front door, I found Noah standing there. He flinched for a second when he saw me, then immediately straightened his back. "Ethan, I'm here to help Miss Vance pack. She's taking me with her on a business trip to Boston." After saying this, Noah watched my movements warily, clearly still spooked by the slap Mark had given him. I treated him as if he were invisible and walked straight past him to the bedroom. Clara was inside, looking for clothes. Suits, skirts, and blouses were scattered all over the bed. Seeing me, She pressed her lips together into a thin line and asked nonchalantly, "You weren't feeling well yesterday? Was it your stomach acting up again?" I gave a sarcastic laugh. "We're divorced now. You don't need to trouble yourself with my health." Stepping around the clutter on the floor, I opened a drawer and started packing my own things. Clara crossed her arms, her inquisitive gaze following my every move. After watching me for a moment, she suddenly let out a soft laugh. "You knew I was going to Boston. You don't trust me that much, do you? Go on, tell me. When were you planning to secretly follow me? I'll just have Noah change your ticket, and we can all go together." I ignored her and reached on my tiptoes for the suitcase stored on top of the wardrobe. Clara came over to help me get it down. I tried to maintain my distance, but she took the opportunity to pull me into her arms. "Stop sulking. You got your revenge, he got hit. Isn't that enough for you?" she whispered soothingly in my ear. This was one of Clara's classic moves. I frowned, about to push her away, but just then Noah's voice came from outside the door. "Miss Vance, I'm a little thirsty. Is it okay if I go downstairs and buy a bottle of water?" Clara paused and looked at him. "There's water in the fridge. You can just get it yourself." But Noah shook his head nervously, putting on the same timid act as before. "Your husband probably wouldn't like me touching things in your house. I'll just go to the convenience store downstairs." I laughed out loud. "Since you already know I don't like it, what are you doing here in the first place? Are you here just to deliberately annoy me?" Sensing the sharp hostility in my tone, Noah's eyes reddened, and he pulled his hand back from the doorframe as if he'd been burned. Clara's voice grew heavy. "I asked him to come. It's more convenient for going to the airport together later." She then turned to Noah and said gently, "You don't know this neighborhood, so don't wander off. It's fine. Just get some water from the fridge." Noah nodded and walked away, looking utterly wronged. As soon as he was out of earshot, Clara looked me directly in the eyes and said seriously, "I don't get it. You can be so tolerant and considerate to a random waiter at a restaurant, so why do you have it in for Noah? He's just a kid in his early 20s. It's perfectly normal for him to make mistakes." I curled my lip into a smirk. "Because I'm a petty, jealous man who goes crazy with envy when he sees his wife with a male assistant and is willing to use the threat of divorce to get his way. Do you understand now? Are you satisfied with that answer?" Clara took a half step back, her brow deeply furrowed as if she were utterly disappointed in me. "If you're going to be like this, then don't come to Boston with me." "Who said I was going with you?" I sneered. "Then where are you packing to go?" I ignored her and turned back to my clothes. But as soon as I opened the wardrobe, the cloying scent of orange blossom hit me. I couldn't stop myself from gagging. The scent diffuser inside the wardrobe had been switched to orange blossom, my most hated scent. It was the exact same smell as the cologne Noah wore. Clara didn't understand at first. Then she saw my pale face, and her tone softened. "Are you really not feeling well? Have you seen a doctor?" I shook my head. "It's an old problem." She reached out to touch my forehead, and was about to say more, but Noah knocked on the door again. "Miss Vance, we should get going now, or we'll miss our flight." Clara glanced at the time, hesitated for a moment, then helped me sit down on the edge of the bed. She instructed me softly, "Have the housekeeper make you some light meals while I'm gone. When I get back, I'll bring you some palmiers from Boston." She kissed the top of my head gently, just like she always used to, as if our argument had been completely forgotten, and as if I would, as always, wait obediently at home for her return. After arriving in Boston, Clara seemed intent on making peace. She sent me her detailed itinerary every day, right on schedule, and consistently asked about my health. It was just like old times. I never replied. I almost wanted to laugh. She didn't really need to tell me any of this information. Noah's social media was being updated frequently enough to keep me informed. Golf clubs, private ski resorts, yacht clubs, exclusive auctions, wherever Clara went, he followed. Since official work schedules were confidential, he only posted about all the fun and games. These curated glimpses into a glamorous, high-society lifestyle brought Noah a tidal wave of online traffic and attention. One top-rated comment even asked when he and the CEO were planning on having a baby so the commenter could get in line to be reincarnated as their child. Noah replied to it with a single blushing emoji and pinned the comment to the top of the thread. The posts quickly made the rounds in our shared social circle, and the blurry profile of Clara in the background of the photos was soon recognized. A different kind of voice began to appear in the comments section. "That's the CEO of Apex Tech. I remember her husband was her college classmate. They got married right after graduation. WTF, so this blogger is the other man? I've been shipping them this whole time. Unfollowed. You've tainted my feed. Why is everyone just trashing the guy? Let me say a few words about the woman. She's a cheater." Similar comments multiplied rapidly. Noah couldn't delete them fast enough, so he was forced to hide the posts and set his entire account to private. But the topic had already gone viral. Someone started a popular thread analyzing whether Clara's right-hand man was knowingly the other man in an affair. I was about to scroll past it, but then I reconsidered, went back, and paid to boost the post's visibility. Let it get bigger, I thought. It wouldn't hurt anything. I'm the kind of person who enjoys watching a good train wreck. A dull ache started in my lower abdomen. I put down my phone and took a sip of the warm broth Mark had brought me. The day after I flew to Portland, I had the surgery at a private hospital. The doctor said I needed to rest and suggested I stay for a few days to recover, so I ended up staying for a full week. There was no overwhelming sense of heartbreak like I had imagined there would be. When I woke up from the anesthesia, I was so calm it actually scared me. It was just a small stomach operation caused by long-term anxiety and stress. I was grateful that I had finally made the decision to get rid of the root cause of this sickness. An unhealthy relationship is like a tumor. The sooner you cut it out, the better. A light, medicinal taste spread in my mouth. Mark's housekeeper was an excellent cook. I finished the entire bowl of soup and started reading over a stock transfer agreement. As I expected, Clara would be contacting me very soon. I just didn't expect her to show up in person. I had just gotten off the phone with Mark, who had given me a heads up. A travel-worn figure appeared outside my hospital room door. Clara's face was ashen as she stared blankly at me lying in the hospital bed. After a long, silent moment, her lips moved, and she managed to force out a question in a strained voice. Why are you in the gastroenterology unit?" "I had a small operation," I answered calmly. "The one you've been ignoring for so long." Her body swayed, and she nearly collapsed. Nurses passing by in the hallway cast curious glances at the usually sharp, professional woman who now looked so vulnerable. I sighed. "Come in. Close the door. I have something to tell you." Clara walked dazedly to my bedside. Looking at her up close, I noticed the faint dark circles under her eyes. Her blazer was unironed, the collar wrinkled. It looked like she had rushed here on a red-eye flight. I looked away from her and handed her a folder. "The divorce was too rushed. We didn't handle the division of our assets properly. Apex is your life's work. I don't want any shares. Just give me $5 million in cash. As for the real estate, mutual funds, and insurance policies, I want half of everything." Clara flipped through the documents without looking up, her hands gradually beginning to tremble. She looked up at me, her face a mask of utter disbelief. "When did you do all of this?" I smiled without making a sound. "While you were taking your special little assistant out to see the world." Clara frowned and rushed to explain. "If this is because of that social media account, I've already had my team get our PR firm on it. The news will be contained, and the account will be deleted immediately. It won't have a major impact. Noah, She paused. Noah will be transferred to a branch office in another state. He will no longer be my assistant. He said that social media was just a side hustle, that he got carried away and wrote all those things for clicks. None of it was even real. Clara's words came faster and faster. She looked at me in anguish, her hand trembling as she reached out, wanting to touch my stomach. Ethan, it's been 7 years. Why do we have to take it this far? Why? I coldly slapped her hand away. Even now you still think you've done nothing wrong, don't you? Clara froze, then hissed through gritted teeth, her anger barely suppressed. What did I do wrong? There has never been anything between Noah and me besides a professional working relationship. I have never crossed that line or done anything to betray you. Pfft. I clutched my stomach, laughing so hard that tears started to form in my eyes. So, remembering your assistant's blood sugar, giving him a watch worth tens of thousands of dollars as a birthday gift, being inseparable on business trips, even drinking from the same glass, that's all just part of the job? Our Miss Vance is just so incredibly humane. I clapped lightly, my voice dripping with mock sincerity. Clara's face went from ashen to ghostly white. She pressed her lips together tightly, and it was a long time before she finally explained. I just saw my old self in him. You don't understand. I was just like that back then, poor, ostracized, hitting brick walls everywhere I went looking for a job. I had to grit my teeth and get through everything entirely on my own. I understand. I cut her off and closed my eyes. In the end, I was still weak, and my voice trembled as I spoke. I was the one who was with you through all of that. Have you forgotten, Clara? Those insecure, bitter, and confusing years of our youth. I had so carefully protected her pride, crashing my scooter in the rain and getting covered in mud. It didn't matter. Saving up for ages to buy her a discounted suit made me happier than buying 100 new outfits for myself. Celebrating our anniversary at a cheap street food stall, she was so consumed with guilt, her eyes turned red, promising that she would make it all up to me one day. I just laughed, raised my plastic cup to a stray dog, and shouted that we were going to be rich someday. I was the one who walked with her from a tiny rental apartment into a wider world, and she couldn't wait to take the fruits of that shared journey and use them to nurture another young man. Do you know why I hate celebrating my birthday alone? Clara looked stunned, completely confused by the sudden change of topic. Because every year on my birthday, I dream about the day my mom killed herself. She was driven mad by my dad's cheating and all his crap. She chose to die rather than stay for me. I stroked the crisp white bedsheets and spoke softly. And this year, on my birthday, you abandoned me too. All because you had to go and help Noah fix his stupid computer. Clara tried to explain again. I just shook my head and looked her straight in the eye. You're the one who said it. Being loyal to your partner is the bare minimum in a relationship. The bullet from 7 years ago finally hit its mark. Clara clutched her head as if in pain. I can't go through that again. This marriage is over. You should go. Clara refused to leave. Mark yelled all sorts of nasty things at her and even slapped her twice across the face, but the very next day she would be back, waiting quietly outside my hospital room without fail. She brought more expensive supplements, along with my favorite palmiers and bouquets of irises. I didn't touch any of it. I had the nurses send it all back, unopened. This continued right up until the day before I was scheduled to be discharged. Sarah, the VP, called me suddenly. She said that a competitor was exploiting the situation with Noah, and the negative press was spiraling out of control. Apex Tech's stock was plummeting. Worried that the value of my own shares would be affected, I called Clara and told her to go back and handle the company's crisis. I'll be coming back for a little while too, I added. Clara's eyes lit up with a flicker of hope. But I am not attending any press conference. and I am definitely not helping you with damage control. You made this mess. You clean it up." When Sarah had called, besides trying to get me to convince Clara to return, she had another request. The board members wanted me to hold a joint press conference with Clara to publicly deny the rumors of an affair. "After all, nothing physical actually happened," she had argued. "You should at least give Clara a chance. You two have been together for so many years. Do you know how many people she has turned down for you? If she really wanted to do something, she would have done it a long time ago. This time it was the assistant who was young and dumb. Just be the bigger person, don't hold it against him. Apex only recognizes you as the boss's husband. Okay?" I let out a humorless laugh. "Sarah, I'm not considerate. I'm a sensitive and suspicious man. I can't help you with this. Also, Clara and I are divorced. As for being Apex's boss's husband, whoever wants that title can have it." Sarah went completely silent on the other end of the line. I hung up the phone crisply. I took a deep breath. One last trip back. There was one more thing I had to do. I had planned to travel separately from Clara, but she must have looked up my flight information because she followed me to the airport like a silent ghost. I couldn't be bothered with her, so I just put on my sunglasses and slept for the entire flight. She was considerate enough to keep her distance and didn't disturb me. Not a single word was spoken between us. And so, we arrived at our front door. Noah, who must have gotten the news of our return from somewhere, was waiting there for us. He had lost a significant amount of weight in just a few days. He was dressed like a student and looked disheveled, a far cry from the confident, impeccably dressed man in the custom suit I had seen last. The moment he saw Clara, his eyes reddened with a sense of grievance. "Miss Vance, HR has suspended me. They threw all of my things out." Clara's face was cold. "That was on my orders. You are to report to the branch office next month." "But I'm your assistant," Noah tried to argue. "You should know what you did wrong. A suspension and a transfer is the lightest possible punishment you could receive." Clara's tone was hard and unforgiving. She walked around him, trying to lead me into the house. Noah, with red-rimmed eyes, chased after her. "But I just posted a few things on social media. What guy hasn't fantasized about a powerful CEO falling in love with him?" He broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "I admit I made some things up, but you need to create a story to get traffic on social media. Miss Vance, you know my parents are both disabled, and I have a younger brother still in school. They all depend on the money I send home every month. I'm under so much pressure, and that's why I tried to make some extra money this way. Miss Vance, please, just give me one more chance." Noah reached out and grabbed Clara's sleeve. It was quite a tragic performance. I crossed my arms and watched, thoroughly entertained by the spectacle. Including the watch, Noah had received at least $1 million worth of gifts and bonuses from Clara during his few short months on the job. That wasn't even mentioning the designer clothes for banquets, the VIP cards for private clubs, and so on. I had looked into his background. His parents did have some health problems, but they were honest, hard-working people, not the type to bleed their son dry. Noah was so desperate simply because he couldn't bear the thought of giving up his current lavish lifestyle. Clara seemed to realize this as well. She shook off his hand in disgust. "That's enough. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling security." Noah was still crying and trying to defend himself. "I never thought that post would get so much attention. Someone must have been fanning the flames behind the scenes," he said. And then he seemed to have found an opening, his red eyes turning to me. "Sir, was it you? I know you don't like me, but Apex is Miss Vance's life's work. How could you do this just to get back at her?" "You shut up!" Clara roared. "Stop trying to sling mud at Ethan. You're in no position to talk about what he has done for Apex." Caleb laughed through his tears. "Miss Vance, you still don't get it, do you? Look at him with that smug, superior attitude of his. What has he ever done for you besides feed off your emotions, spend your money, and suck you dry? Has he ever genuinely cared about your health? Does he have any idea how hard you worked to build this company from nothing? While you were working day and night for the company, too busy to even eat, he was at home playing the rich young master, throwing tantrums and fighting with you over nothing. What has he ever done for you? A person like that doesn't deserve to be with you. Noah's face twisted with hatred as he glared at me. I suddenly felt a profound wave of relief. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. "Looks like you didn't learn your lesson last time," I said. "When I was with Clara through thick and thin, you were still off somewhere daydreaming about striking it rich. What right do you possibly have to say that I don't deserve her? You idiot." Security, having heard the commotion, finally arrived and dragged a screaming Noah away. He cried out Clara's name over and over again, but he received no response. Clara held the press conference by herself. She apologized to her supporters and announced that she would be taking a temporary leave of absence, which would not affect the company's normal operations. Thanks to her sincere apology and the timely launch of a corporate charity fund to divert public attention, she managed to stop the financial bleeding. After Noah's scene that day, Clara canceled his transfer to the branch office entirely. He didn't give up and tried the same trick of ambushing her car in the garage again. But that day, Sarah was the one driving. She couldn't brake in time and ended up hitting Noah, sending him to the hospital. At the hospital, Noah cried and demanded that Clara come to see him. Someone filmed the incident and posted it online, leading to another round of public ridicule. By the time I saw the video, I had already finalized the transfer of my shares and the complete division of our assets. The day before I was scheduled to leave for Portland for good, I went to see my mother. Her grave was neatly tended, with a fresh bouquet of purple irises and a box of mung bean cakes, her favorite, placed before the headstone. My face was expressionless. I took the flowers and pastries, threw them into a plastic bag, and replaced them with the ones I had brought myself. "Mom, I won't be able to throw away the things she brings anymore. Just pretend you don't see them, okay?" I stroked her smiling face in the small photograph and said softly, "These were all from my father. After my mother died, everyone thought he would remarry quickly, but instead, he was like a completely different person. After her funeral, he sat alone in the house for 3 days and 3 nights, and then shaved his head. He stopped going to dance halls, stopped flirting with other women, and spent most of his days drinking himself into a stupor. When he was sober, he would clutch my mother's photograph and weep inconsolably. An old woman who was our neighbor would shake her head and sigh whenever she mentioned him. He didn't know how to treat her right when she was here, she would say. What good are tears now? That's right. What good are they? If the depth of love must be measured by the pain of its separation, then such a relationship is nothing but mutual torment. As I was coming down the hill from the cemetery, a light rain began to fall. Autumn was just around the corner, and a hint of coolness was in the air. In the distance, I saw Clara standing under a street sign, holding an umbrella, though I had no idea how long she'd been waiting there. When she saw me, she hurried over, tilting the umbrella to cover me and pulling a warm paper bag of chestnuts from her coat pocket. "I saw a vendor selling them on the street, so I got you a bag. I remember you always craved roasted chestnuts every autumn." She held the bag out to me carefully, as if she were presenting a priceless treasure. The sweet, roasted aroma filled the air. I didn't take it. I just stared at her shoulder, which was gradually getting soaked by the rain. "Clara," I said, "do you remember the morning we got together?" She looked startled. Then a hint of joy appeared on her face as she nodded. "I remember. It was snowing heavily, and you were waiting for me outside the dorm with buns. Your face was all red from the cold." I took the umbrella from her and straightened it, making sure it covered her shoulder. Back then, you told me to love myself first, before loving others. I looked down and took another umbrella from my own backpack. If you're asking me to forget everything and get back together with you, it would be nothing but torture for me. You can't unspill water and you can't mend a shattered mirror, so let's both just focus on loving ourselves from now on. The light in Clara's eyes slowly faded. I'm sorry, I said. Don't come looking for me anymore. I had a lot of things I needed to do, like renovating my new house, like getting a puppy, like opening my own studio. I opened my umbrella and turned to walk away. Mark had just sent me a photo. The little house I'd bought has a south-facing balcony. In the afternoon, the sun streams in, painting the wooden floorboards a soft, golden color. It's beautiful. For me, this rain is over,